I was supposed to be out on the water for another 3 days, but the crab yield had been so bad I cut the trip short. No sense burning fuel for empty traps. On the ride back to the harbor, I kept thinking about surprising Lena. She'd been hinting about this upscale Italian place over in Port Townsend, something about handmade pasta and an ambience that doesn't smell like fish. I figured maybe I'd make a reservation and pretend I was feeling fancy. Let her dress up. Give her a night where she wasn't waiting up for a man who smelled like diesel and brine. The sky was already dark when I pulled into our driveway. Our house sits up on a bluff, nothing extravagant, just a clean, weathered place with cedar shingles and a wraparound porch that overlooks the water. The porch light was off. No music from inside. No TV. No clinking dishes. Just quiet. Too quiet. Lena's car was parked where it always was, under the pine tree by the fence. That was the first thing that made my stomach pull a little tight. The second was that Diesel, our Chesapeake Bay retriever, didn't come running to the truck door. Usually he hears me pull up from halfway down the street and barrels out like a cannonball. But the yard was still. I frowned, stepping out slow. Diesel? I called. Nothing. I climbed the porch steps and let myself in. The air inside smelled like lemon and wood polish. The lights were off. Kitchen was spotless. I set my duffel down and walked through the hallway toward the bedroom. That's when it really hit me. Her dresser drawers half empty. The little ceramic bowl on the nightstand where she kept her wedding ring and hoop earrings? Gone. Jewelry box too. The closet looked hollowed out. Her bright floral dresses weren't there. Her perfume wasn't on the vanity. I walked back into the living room and looked around like maybe I'd missed something obvious. Maybe she was just out walking Diesel. That's when I saw the envelope. Propped up against the framed photo of us at the marina, the one from 5 years back when we were still renting. She looked sunburned and happy. I looked young and stupid. The envelope had my name on it. Just, Noah. I already knew what it was. But I opened it anyway. Noah. I need to do this for me. I've met someone. His name is Jonathan. He's an investor. He understands me in ways you never tried to. I'm not coming back. Please don't make this harder than it is. A lawyer will be in touch soon about the house. Take care of Diesel. Lena. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Not even a goddamn, I'm sorry. I sank onto the couch. Diesel patted in a minute later, his tail low like even he knew something was off. He rested his chin on my knee and I just stared at the paper in my hands. She was gone. Just like that. A clean exit. The drawers, the jewelry, the house key off her ring. All timed like a hit job. Turns out, the worst good punches don't come with screaming or slamming doors. Sometimes they come in perfect silence, sealed in a white envelope. Eli showed up about 2 hours after I called him. I didn't say much on the phone, just that I needed him. He didn't ask questions, just said, "I'll be there soon," and hung up. When he knocked, I was still sitting on the same spot on the couch, Diesel curled at my feet. I hadn't moved. Hadn't turned on a light. The envelope was still on the coffee table like a ticking bomb. I was too numb to touch. Eli let himself in. He carried a brown paper bag that smelled like burgers and onion rings and 2 gas station coffees that were probably more burnt than brewed. "Hey," he said softly. I nodded. "Hey." He set the food down and looked around. "Place feels thin." "She took her stuff," I said. "All of it?" I nodded again. "Yeah. Jewelry. Clothes. Even her blue raincoat." "Damn." He sat down across from me, elbows on his knees, and gave me that look. Not pity, just the kind of tired sympathy you only get from someone who's known you since you were kids fighting over fishing rods. "You eat today?" "Didn't feel like it." "Well, I brought enough grease to soak up a whole bottle of whiskey if you change your mind." I didn't say anything. He opened the bag anyway and slid a burger toward me. We ate in silence for a few minutes. Or Eli did. I just unwrapped mine, stared at it, then put it down. He finally broke the quiet. "She left a note?" I nodded again, reaching for it. He read it slowly, jaw tightening the farther down he got. "Investor," he said with a snort. Jesus. What a cliché. "She said he understands her," I mumbled. "Yeah, and I bet he also understands Ponzi schemes and Teslas." That almost got a smile out of me. Almost. Eli leaned back. "You see this coming?" "I saw something," I said. Didn't want to admit it. "Like what?" I rubbed the back of my neck. She changed. Started dressing up more. Got real into personal development podcasts. Kept talking about energy ambition. She joined a yoga studio in town, started tagging along to these networking mixers. Said she wanted to feel seen. Eli raised his eyebrows. "Seen?" "She met a friend there. Serena. Yacht broker. Been married 3 times. Real flashy." Drives a white BMW and uses the word manifest like it's a spell. He whistled. One of those? Yeah. I think that's when it started. The drift. Lena stopped caring about crab quotas or boat engines. She started talking about beachfront condos and passive income. Eli shook his head. And you were what? Just the guy with the calloused hands and a savings account? Pretty much. We sat in that for a minute. Diesel gave a soft groan and nudged his head into my leg. I scratched behind his ears, not looking up. She was halfway gone months ago, I said. Maybe longer. Eli leaned forward again. You were trying to build a life. Fix the roof. Save for repairs. You weren't chasing lifestyle upgrades, you were chasing security. I nodded. Thought that would be enough. She wanted a different life. Doesn't mean she deserved to burn yours down on the way out. That part hit hard. She said a lawyer would be in touch, I said quietly. About the house. Eli frowned. It's in your name, right? Yeah. Then let her lawyer try. We didn't say much after that. Just sat with the sound of the tide in the distance and the hum of the old fridge. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty, more like a pause. A quiet that knew grief was in the room but wasn't rushing it. When he left that night, Eli clapped a hand on my shoulder. You call me anytime. Doesn't matter if it's 2 a.m. I'll bring more fries. I nodded. Thanks. And after the door shut behind him, I sat there for another hour. Just me, Diesel, and the wreckage of a life I didn't know had already started sinking months ago. Felix's office sat wedged between a tackle shop and a bar that hadn't changed its jukebox playlist since 1998. It smelled faintly like salt air and printer toner, and the windows faced the marina so you could always see who was pulling in with a busted hull or legal trouble. I'd known Felix for years. He handled my boat registration stuff and once helped Eli out of a property dispute when a neighbor built a shed 2 feet over the line. He wasn't flashy, but he was sharp. He looked up when I walked in, already chewing on a toothpick. Heard you came back early. Didn't expect to see you for another week. Plans changed. He took one look at my face and nodded. That bad, huh? Worse. I told him everything. From cutting the trip short to the silent house, the note, the half-empty drawers. I kept it plain, just the facts, but Felix was good at reading between the lines. He didn't interrupt until I mentioned the lawyer Lena said would be contacting me about the house. She's gonna try and come for it, I said, rubbing my eyes. I need to know what I'm up against. He leaned back and steepled his fingers. Let's start at the beginning. Who's on the deed? Me. Bought the house 4 years ago. Before we got married. She ever contribute to mortgage payments? Nope. I covered everything. She helped with the down payment, 10 grand from her old savings, but I paid her back in full 2 years ago when I sold the smaller boat. Felix's eyes narrowed. Did you ever add her name to the title? No. We talked about it once. I offered. She said she didn't care, just wanted to feel secure. So I got her on my health insurance and made her co-signer on one of the accounts, but the house? Always stayed under my name. Felix nodded. Smart move. Intentionally or not. I blinked. So she can't take it? She's got no legal claim unless there's proof of substantial joint contribution, which it doesn't sound like there is. But let me run a search anyway, see what she's been up to. He opened his laptop and pulled up the county records site. It took a minute, but when he leaned forward, his whole demeanor changed. Well, look at this, he said. What? She bought property. I frowned. What are you talking about? 2 years ago. A downtown condo under an LLC called Halcyon Holdings. I cross-referenced it. Guess who's listed as the managing member? My chest went cold. Lena? Yup. And just last summer, the LLC transferred the deed to her personal name. You're telling me she bought a condo while we were married? Sure looks like it. With what money? He clicked a few more things, then glanced up. That's the next part. We need to talk about your joint accounts. Felix pulled the latest bank statements I'd emailed over. He started highlighting withdrawals, transfers, odd recurring charges, most of them small, some of them not. A couple designer charges out of Seattle. A luxury betting site. A mysterious autodraft to a boutique property management company. Looks like she's been siphoning little by little for over a year, Felix said. Smart. Nothing too noticeable. Just enough to avoid red flags. I sat back hard in the chair. So this whole time, she was planning an exit? Felix closed the folder and looked at me. Dead serious. Noah, she didn't just leave. She staged a clean break with a financial head start. She's been working this plan quietly for at least 18 months. The room felt like it tilted. I thought about her sudden interest in budgets. Those times she offered to handle groceries. How she insisted we use her card for little stuff. Just for the points, she'd said. I stared at the wall behind Felix. I was saving for a new motor. She was saving for an escape route. Felix nodded. Good news is you've got the paper trail. She's not touching your house. And once we get a clearer picture of that account activity, we'll figure out just how much she owes you. I didn't say anything for a long time. Just watched a boat pull into the marina and tried to remember what it felt like to come home to someone who hadn't already packed their bags months before they said goodbye. Started 48 hours later. First, one missed call from Lena. Then another. Then 4 more stacked on top of each other like frantic dominoes. She didn't leave voicemails. Just kept calling like repetition could undo what she'd done. I didn't answer. I didn't have anything to say that she wouldn't try to spin or soften. And I didn't want to hear her voice say my name like it still meant something. Eventually, she texted, "Can we please talk? It's important. I didn't want things to be like this. Please pick up." Then came the shift. "Noah, you're being childish. We need to list the house. The market's cooling. You're going to lose equity if you stall. It's not smart to let emotion get in the way of business." That one made me laugh. Business. Like our marriage had just been a handshake deal that went stale. I put the phone down and got back to measuring out the new planks I'd bought to replace the warped dock boards. Diesel lay nearby, half dozing in the sun, twitching occasionally like he was chasing something in a dream. I envied him for that. It wasn't until the 6th call that day that I got one from a number I didn't recognize. Landline from Olympia. I almost ignored it, but something told me to pick up. Noah speaking. There was a pause, and then, "Noah, it's Harold, her father." I blinked. "Hey, didn't expect to hear from you." He cleared his throat. "Lena's upset. She told us what happened." I stayed quiet. "She said you're refusing to work with her, that you're keeping the house out of spite." Of course she did. I exhaled through my nose. "She also tell you she never added herself to the deed? Or that she's been draining our account for over a year to buy a secret condo under an LLC?" Silence. "Harold." No. She didn't mention that." Did she tell you she left a note?" "Not a conversation. Not a heads up. A note. After gutting the bedroom and taking off with the dog too depressed to eat for a day." More silence. Then, slowly, "Noah, I'm sorry. I didn't know." I believed him. He sounded stunned. Old in a way he hadn't a few months ago when he helped me install a new fish locker on the boat. "She always had a way of keeping things to herself," he said after a long pause. "I saw it in her mother too." I didn't say anything. "I shouldn't have assumed," Harold said. "She spun a version and I believed it. But if even half of what you're saying is true, then, well, she's made her bed. She's going to need more than that," I muttered. "She's got a lawyer lined up, and I'm guessing panic's setting in because she just realized she misplayed her hand." He sighed. "I'll talk to her. I won't enable this. You've always been good to her, Noah. Better than I think she ever let herself admit." That meant something. Not a lot. Not enough to fix anything, but it was more honesty than I'd gotten from Lena in the last year. We hung up a minute later. The next morning, the text stopped. The silence felt earned. Not peaceful yet, but necessary. I went back to my dock repairs, and for the first time since finding the note, I didn't feel like the ground was shifting under my feet. The tide was low when she pulled up in her silver SUV, tires crunching over the gravel path near the coastal edge of the property. I was down by the dock, elbow deep in a can of marine-grade sealant, kneeling on a new board that still smelled like fresh-cut cedar. I didn't look up right away. I knew it was her. I could hear Diesel growl low from the porch, the way he always did when something wasn't quite right. Lena didn't call out my name. She just walked across the grass like she still belonged there, like this wasn't a scene out of a bad divorce movie. When she got close enough, she stopped just short of the dock. "Noah," she said, her voice too steady. I didn't answer right away, just wiped my hands on a rag and stood up slow. "You've been ignoring my calls." I shrugged. Didn't seem like there was anything worth saying. Her eyes narrowed. "We need to talk about the house." I gestured to the boards beneath my feet. "As you can see, I'm already talking to it." This isn't a joke, Noah. The market's cooling fast. If we don't list soon. I cut her off. There is no we. You're not on the title. She blinked. What? You heard me. You never were. The deed's in my name. Always has been. She stepped forward, the first flicker of confusion starting to show in her expression. But we were married. That counts for something. Nope. Not in Washington. Not without financial contribution or joint ownership. You covered groceries sometimes. Meanwhile, I paid the mortgage, the insurance, the repairs. I even bought your engagement ring out of the same account you were siphoning money from. She went pale. You don't know what you're talking about. Felix found the condo, I said calmly. The one you bought under Halcyon Holdings. He pulled the LLC paperwork, the transfer documents, the banking activity. You were setting yourself up years ago. Her mouth opened, then closed. That property was supposed to be insurance, right? I said. Insurance. For a life without me. She took a step closer, voice softening. You're angry. I get it. I know I didn't handle things well. But we don't have to burn everything down. I raised an eyebrow. Did you say that before or after you cleaned out your closet and left a note like I was your landlord? Her face twisted slightly. I panicked. No, I said. You planned. There's a difference. That's when she shifted. From guilt to charm. She stepped closer, eyes wider, voice warm and nostalgic. I never stopped loving you, Noah. I was confused. I let Serena get in my head. You were always so focused on saving and fixing things. I felt like I was disappearing. Then you should have said something. I'm saying it now, she whispered, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. She blinked, then straightened, the softness gone. I need help, Noah, she snapped. The condo's upside down. Jonathan, the investor, his firm's getting sued. His accounts are frozen, and the mortgage is 2 months behind. Sounds like you picked the wrong success story, I said. Her voice cracked. I don't have anywhere else to go. That's not my problem. You're seriously going to throw me away like I'm nothing? I'm not throwing you away. You left. I'm just finally accepting it. She stared at me, breathing hard. You won't win. I already did, I said. I kept the house, the dog, my dignity. That's more than you've got left. She turned without another word, walked back up to her SUV, and slammed the door hard enough to make Diesel bark. Gravel spat from her tires as she sped out the driveway. I turned back to the dock, crouched down, and kept sealing the planks. The sun dipped lower on the water, and for the first time in weeks, it didn't feel like everything was slipping away. It felt like something solid was finally staying put. The next morning, I changed all the locks. Front door, side door, the padlock on the boathouse. Everything. It wasn't about fear. Lena wouldn't come sneaking in like a burglar, but I needed the boundary. Something physical to match the emotional line she'd already crossed months ago. Then I installed a security system. Basic setup. Cameras on the porch and dock, motion lights along the path. It wasn't just for her. I wanted peace of mind. A way to finally sleep without wondering who might think they still had a key to my life. After that, I pulled out my old safe and started going through paperwork. I hadn't looked at most of it since before the wedding. Our joint bank statements, tax returns, credit reports. I made copies, marked dates, highlighted anything that didn't make sense. That's when I started noticing things I'd missed. Hotel bills in cities we'd never visited together. Jewelry purchases under $500. Small enough to dodge suspicion, but consistent. A $2,100 charge at a boutique furniture place in Bellevue. I remember asking her about that when it posted. Oh, that's just Serena's bachelorette thing. I fronted the cost and they'll Venmo me. I checked the transfer history. No Venmo ever came. She'd been playing her game long before Jonathan showed up. Then I opened a folder marked Lena's work expenses. Something she'd always handled herself. Inside was a printout of a Schedule C from 2 years ago, one I didn't remember signing. And at the bottom, in tiny handwriting, a note. Filed jointly. Reviewed 3/15. Except I never reviewed it. And there it was, a deduction for a condo travel expense, another for consulting meals, and one bold line for home office improvement, claimed against our shared residence. It hit me hard. She hadn't just taken my money. She'd used my name and signature to pad her financial alibi. If the IRS ever asked questions, they'd come knocking on my door, too. I snapped a photo of every page and saved it to a password-protected drive. Then I placed the originals in a locked firebox, slid it under the stairs, and covered it with a bin of old fishing gear. By the time the sun set, I hadn't heard a word from Lena. No calls. No texts. No emails. That's how I knew she was panicking. Word must have gotten back to her, maybe from Harold, maybe from her lawyer, that the house wasn't hers. That I wasn't playing the good-natured ex-husband she'd probably planned on. She'd gone radio silent, but the rest of the world hadn't. I heard from a mutual acquaintance, Kara, who worked down at the marina fuel dock. She said Lena had been crying in her SUV last week, yelling on speakerphone about capital losses and unavailable funds. Jonathan's firm, it turned out, had filed for bankruptcy. Serena? Gone, vanished from social media. The condo? Still under Lena's name. Still bleeding money. And her glittery circle of glamorous, high-achieving friends? They were shrinking faster than the tides in August. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just went back to replacing the broken shingles on the west side of the house and let the wind carry her silence wherever it needed to go. Let her sit in it. I had dock work, receipts, and a damn good dog that didn't need explanations. The divorce papers came in a thick envelope delivered by certified mail. Diesel barked when the carrier knocked, like he always did, and I signed without a word. The man handed me the envelope like it was a bomb, gave me a look that said he'd seen plenty of these, and walked off down the steps. I set the papers on the kitchen table and stared at them for a while before I opened them. The cover letter was polite, lawyer talk for "we're not trying to start a war unless you do." Attached were Lena's requests. Spousal support. Half of the marital assets. Her lawyer even had the audacity to include a line about reasonable compensation for the disruption to her lifestyle. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Half the assets. Of the house she wasn't on. Of the bank account she siphoned from. Of the truck she never drove. She wanted the illusion of fairness without any of the facts that made it inconvenient. I brought the whole packet to Felix the next morning. He flipped through it without flinching, just chewed on his usual toothpick and raised an eyebrow. "She's reaching. By a mile," I said. "You want to fight it line by line?" I shook my head. "Not all of it. Let her have the furniture. The Nissan. Whatever dishes she left in storage." Felix gave me a sideways look. "That's generous. She can have the stuff that doesn't matter. Let her think she won a few rounds." He tapped the papers. "What about the condo?" "I've got the bank records, the LLC filings, the transfers, the tax documents. All of it's ready to go if we need to drag this into court." He nodded slowly. "So you're playing the long game?" "Exactly. I didn't want revenge. That wasn't my style. But I wasn't about to roll over and make things easy. I wanted to walk out of this with what mattered: my house, my freedom, my clean conscience, and leave her with the paper trail she built for herself. I spent the next few weeks methodically closing out our life together. I closed the joint account, forwarded the tax documents to Felix, sold the old fishing gear Lena had begged me to keep just in case we ever go to Alaska. I didn't need the reminders. I even boxed up the last of her mail, some catalogs, a letter from a credit agency, a promotional postcard from that wine tasting place she used to drag me to. I dropped it off at Harold's porch. Didn't ring the bell. Just left it there and walked away. And in between all that, I got to work rebuilding. I started fixing up my boat, not the big commercial one, but the little blue one I used to take out on weekends before life got complicated. Rewired the engine harness. Repainted the hull. Replaced the radio. Then I started a little side business out of my garage. Boat maintenance for the local guys who didn't want to deal with mechanics from the city. Word spread quick. Within 2 weeks, I had 5 jobs lined up and 2 more calls coming in every day. It felt good. Simple. Like I was back in my own skin. I even started grabbing lunch with people I hadn't seen in years, the guys from the marina, Eli's old contractor buddies. One of them, Rick, offered to introduce me to a supplier for parts. Said I could probably undercut the big shops if I played it right. Diesel? He was a new dog. More relaxed. He slept at my feet while I worked and barked at the mailman like it was a full-time job. He'd been through it too, in his own way. And now, like me, he was starting fresh. Lena had filed for half, but I'd already kept what counted. The rest? Just stuff. And I wasn't trading my peace to hold onto any of it. I was finally in control, not to punish, but to protect what I'd built. And I had no plans of letting it slip through my fingers again. It came in a thick, crumpled envelope with government insignia stamped across the top, the kind of mail nobody ever wants. IRS. Official audit notification. But it wasn't addressed to me. It was meant for Lena. It must have been forwarded by mistake to the P.O. box we used to share back when everything was joint. I stared at it for a long second, then set it aside on the counter. I already knew what it was about. Felix had predicted it weeks ago, said the deductions she took through that LLC were aggressive, bordering on laughable. I wasn't laughing. Not yet. But I wasn't sorry either. The same day, Kara from the marina texted me a link to an article on a local business blog. Jonathan's name was in the headline. His investment group had gone under. Lawsuits were piling up and his assets were frozen while creditors swarmed. The condo Lena bought? It had just been flagged for non-compliance and was on the city's at-risk properties list. Structural problems. Unpaid permits. Multiple liens. Karma didn't just show up. It sent paperwork. Her social media, the glamorous posts, the aesthetic coffees and wide-brim hats had gone dark weeks ago. No more photos from wine tastings, rooftop brunches, or weekend getaways that probably weren't paid for. Last post was over a month old. Just a sunset with some vague caption like, new energy incoming. I guess it was. Just not the kind she meant. I didn't think about her much anymore. Not really. I was busy. I was tired. I was at peace. So when I saw her at the market, it hit like a bucket of cold water. I was in the freezer aisle grabbing a bag of ice for the bait cooler when I heard a voice behind me. Noah. I turned. There she was, Lena. Hair tied up in a messy bun, makeup smudged, eyes red and tired. She looked smaller, like someone had turned down her volume. She wasn't wearing one of her Instagram-ready outfits, just a wrinkled sweater and faded jeans that didn't quite fit right. Hey, she said, voice soft. Can we talk? I didn't say anything. Just looked at her, waiting. She wrung her hands. Please. Just 5 minutes. I nodded once, more out of curiosity than kindness. We stepped outside and stood near the loading zone beside the row of shopping carts. I know you probably hate me, she began, but I don't know who else to turn to. I said nothing. Jonathan's gone. Disappeared. The condo's a disaster. I owe back taxes. The IRS is. I don't even know what they want from me. My credit's shot and my lawyer dropped me. She looked at me, eyes wide. I made mistakes. I know that. I kept my voice even. And now they've caught up to you. She nodded quickly, trying to hold it together. Can we sit down sometime? I need help. Advice. I don't know where else to go. I looked at her for a long moment. Fine, I said. One conversation. Her shoulders dropped like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. Thank you, she whispered. But I wasn't offering comfort. I was offering closure. Nothing more. We sat in my truck, parked by the bluff where you could see the water stretch all the way to the edge of the sound. It was the same place I used to take Lena on quiet evenings back when we still thought we were building something real. Now the sky was dull and gray and the wind cut sharp through the cracked windows. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Hair pulled back messily, skin pale, fingers tapping nervously on her knee. Thanks for meeting me, she said, her voice scratchy. I didn't answer. I just watched the tide roll in and out. She finally spoke again. I lost everything. I glanced at her, waiting. The condo's under foreclosure. The bank's going after me for everything. The HOA wants to sue me for damages. And Jonathan? He's gone. Completely. His number's disconnected. His company's dead. Still, I said nothing. I tried to refinance, but my credit's garbage now. I miss payments. I can't even get approved for a secured card. My accounts are frozen. And the IRS, they flagged me for the audit. She paused. I think it was you who tipped them off. I turned to her, calm. You filed fraudulent deductions under a fake business. I just made sure the right people noticed. She swallowed hard. You could destroy me. I could, I said. But I haven't. Her lip quivered slightly. I don't know what to do. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, an eviction notice, dated 3 days ago. Then another, a letter from a debt collection agency. And then quietly, I was hoping, just for a little time. A place to stay. Just for a while? The guest room, maybe? The audacity made my chest tighten. But I didn't raise my voice. You don't live here anymore, Lena. You made sure of that. I have nothing, Noah, she whispered. Not my fault. I'm not asking for money. I just need time to get my feet under me. I stared at her for a long, cold moment. Then I reached behind the seat and pulled out a manila folder. Thick. Heavy. Marked with tabs. Her eyes locked on it like it was a lifeline. What's that? I handed it to her. Everything I've got. She opened it slowly. Inside were printouts, every bank transfer from the joint account to her LLC. Property records. Tax deductions. Emails. The real estate paperwork for the condo. Her fake receipts. Even a copy of the letter I'd sent to the IRS and signed unmailed. But ready. Her hands trembled as she flipped through it. You've had this the whole time? Since before you showed up at the dock. Her face drained of color. Why are you giving this to me? So you understand exactly how deep in you are. So you know what I could do if I wanted to. She looked up, eyes wide with fear. What do you want from me? I leaned back in the seat, Diesel curled in the back, quiet and watching. Nothing. Her eyebrows pulled together. What? I don't want anything, I said evenly. I'm not trying to ruin you. I'm not going to use this. I just wanted you to see it. To know that I know. She stared at me like I'd just spoken a foreign language. Then why? I looked back out at the water. Because I already won. She didn't speak after that. She just held the folder on her lap like it weighed 50 pounds and stared straight ahead. And for once, there was no spin in her expression. No charm. No strategy. Just a woman who realized she finally ran out of exits. I opened the door. You should go now. She stepped out of the truck without a word, still holding the folder, her head down against the wind. I watched her walk away, shrinking into the distance until she was nothing but a shadow against the gray. Then I started the engine and drove home. 3 months later, the divorce was final. No appeals, no court battles. Just paperwork and a judge's signature. Felix said it was one of the cleanest endings he'd ever seen, considering how messy the middle had been. Lena didn't contest anything after that last meeting in the truck. I guess once she saw how deep her own tracks went, she realized there was nowhere left to run. She kept the Nissan, a few boxes of her things, and that condo which, last I heard, had officially been condemned for structural damage. She didn't get a dime from me. Not because I fought her on every little thing, but because she had nothing left to leverage. No ground to stand on. Meanwhile, I rebuilt mine. I patched the roof with Eli one weekend, redid the kitchen cabinets the next. Got rid of the old stuff Lena picked out from those overpriced boutique shops and replaced it with what I liked, solid wood, clean lines, nothing that tried too hard. For the first time, the house felt like mine in more than just legal terms. The side business took off faster than I expected. Word spread through the marina and the local Facebook groups. Boat repairs, engine work, winterization. Even some retrofitting for older sailboats. I turned the old shed into a proper workshop and brought on a high school kid part-time to help. Nice kid, quiet, always early, loves learning. Reminded me of me. Diesel? Thriving. More energy than I've seen in years. He's got a new routine now, dock patrol in the mornings, workshop supervisor in the afternoons, and guard duty on the porch by evening. His tail doesn't stop wagging. I even started boarding boats for extra income. Nothing fancy, just a couple of regulars who needed someone to check in on their gear while they traveled. They liked that I lived close to the harbor and knew what I was doing. One of them, a retired Navy guy named Vince, dropped off a bottle of good bourbon and told me not everyone can be trusted to tie a boat and keep a secret. You can. I still saw Harold now and then. He'd stop by for small talk or to drop off a letter that accidentally got sent to Lena's old name. We didn't speak about her much. But one day, standing by his truck, he looked at me and said, "She's back at our house. Trying to figure herself out, I guess. You were right to walk away." I didn't see it then, but I do now. I nodded, not out of satisfaction, just acknowledgement. Some nights I sat out on the porch with a beer, watching the tide come in. It was quiet now. Not lonely, just settled. Peaceful in a way I hadn't realized I'd been missing. And the thing I kept coming back to was this: sometimes the worst ending doesn't ruin you. It frees you. Lena chased a fantasy. I kept my footing. She ended up with broken promises and foreclosure notices. I ended up with a house, a business, a dog, and a life I built with both hands. Not perfect, but mine.